So now that we've got the grid view pulling the details of the tools table and looking at and seeing all the different fields, we want to add the ability to select a tool and get in and see the individual details and then eventually edit and delete and add new. So with the grid view here, I'm on the View All Tools page. All right, I'm going to go into grid view, edit columns. I'm going to add this hyperlink field like we've done before. Okay, and I've done that down here. I've given it the text of select. Everything's going to be off of ToolID. All right, so the ToolID is going to be the unique identifier for the tool. And then I'm going to pass it to ToolDetails.aspx, question mark. So now everything after this is a query string. ToolID equals curly bracket 0 curly bracket. So that should look familiar. When I've done that, I need to create the tool details page, which I've done here. Okay, the tool details page, I've tied it using the master page. I've put a title on it. So now it's time to go ahead and add the content that we need to be able to view the individual detail. So I'm going to do that with a form view. But first let's add a SQL data source. I'm going to grab it out of the tools table, and I just want to see everything. Where the tool ID is equal to the query string. The query string field is tool ID. We'll add that in there, and OK. Next, we can test it if we want. It wants a tool ID, so we can put 3 in there. So the query seems to be working, so we can finish that. All right, now right after this, let's go ahead and add a form view. And let's tie it to the SQL data source 1. I'm going to switch over to source view now. And if I look at it here, it's using labels to show everything. We've also got the insert and the edit. I'm going to go ahead and take everything out of edit for right now. And I'm going to take everything out of insert. I just want item template. So remember, when we're doing updates to an item, we get the edit item template. When we're editing an existing item, when we're putting a new one in, we get we can use the insert template. And if we're just viewing it, we get the item template here. So you can use this. I want to clean it up with the tables, so I'm going to just do some cutting and pasting here quickly. So within this item template, I'm going to display it in a table. The table row, the right-hand box is going to be the name or the descriptor, and then the left hand will be what it actually is. We're just doing the bind to the tool ID. These are labels. We're using ASP, not ASP labels. I've given the label a unique identifier here. Okay, so those things are set. The form view is set to use the data source 1. SQL data source 1 is up here. Just clean this up a little bit. There's the select command that will actually return the data. Okay. So all we're going to be able to do now is just view existing data. So let's check this out and see if it works. We'll go to browser. Okay, so I have my select. When I click this, it should pass the tool ID back to tool details, and the SQL data source on tool details will go grab all of the other information for that one particular ID, which it's doing. So when I click on the chainsaw, it's tool ID number 2. The SQL data source grabs everything about everything I've told it to grab about tool ID number 2 and displays it here. So our viewing the data is working correctly. So now we need to go in and add the buttons to edit and delete. So now that we can view, we need to add a couple of ASP buttons here in our item template. Remember, item template is the one that we see when we're not making any changes or anything like that. It's just the one that appears. We need to add the necessary buttons to make that update and delete. So we need an update and delete button here in item template. So they're going to be ASP buttons. They're going to get unique IDs. I've separated them with a space just to kind of clean them up. Run at server causes validation. What's the command name? Edit or delete. And then the text that appears in the button will be edit and delete. And for the delete, I've just put in this confirmation again. Are you sure you want to delete this tool? Okay, so now we've got the ability to edit and delete through a button, but we need to go in and add those commands to the SQL data source. So when we first configured the data source, we just configured the select command. So let's go back to the data source. It appears I'm just going to add in a new data source here, maybe then. SQL data source, configure data source. I'm going to be in the tools. I'm going to select everything. Where the tool ID is equal to the query string. Query string field is going to be tool ID. And I want to do generate, insert, update, and delete statements. And I can test it. Looks good. I'm not going to reset those. That'll mess up all of my forms. Okay. While I'm in here, I'm going to just go ahead and add a second data source because I'm going to need to get those types, those tool types. Okay. Now let me switch over to source. So now if I come up here and I look at SQL data source 1, there's the delete, the insert, the select, and the update. There's the delete parameters, the insert parameters, the select parameters, and the update parameters. So I have all those automatically populated in there for me. And then here's our SQL data source 2. All it has is a select command. And just grabbing that tool type for possibilities. So we're still not using edit, we're still not using insert yet. We've just got down here edit and delete. Alright, so I want to go ahead now and populate this edit template. Before we were using labels, we're going to populate the edit with text boxes. So I'm here in the edit item template. So I'm doing it with a table again just to keep all the data nice and neat. On the left hand side is the name or what it is, the descriptor, and on the right I've included ASP text boxes, given them a unique name. I don't want the users editing the tool ID, so I've enabled false, so that'll appear grayed out. and then everything is just bound to the correct field in the database. So that works all the way down until we get to type. When we get to type, I don't want the users inventing their own new type. I either want them to choose gas, electric, or hand tool. So I'm going to use a drop-down list. I've given it a unique name. I've pointed it to that second data source that we created up here, where we're just grabbing the possibilities from that database, from the tool type database, the tool type table. And I've bound it, closed up the drop-down list there. I have the update button. I've separated it by a couple of spaces, and then I have the cancel button if I don't want it to be updated. So now that I have the ability to view, all right, under the item template, I can see my data. I can click either the edit or the delete button. If I click the delete button, then the delete command is invoked. So I'm going to delete it from the from the tools table where the tool ID, the record where the tool ID is equal to the tool ID that's been selected. Or I can choose to edit. If I edit it, we'll be up here and invoke this edit template, which are text boxes now instead of labels, so that I can change the value. And then I can update the text box or cancel the update if I choose. So the only thing we have left then is the so for the update would be up here. It'll invoke the update command with the update parameters. And just like with the other pages, I want to get into the code behind, and I want to, when formview 1 has an item deleted event fired, I want to write that back to the user in a label. This label deleted tool.txt, it's not in there yet. So I'll take that label that I'm going to write back to, and I'm going to put it all the way down underneath the form view, outside of the form view. So I'm going to write back to that label, and then I'm going to refresh in 3 seconds and send you back to the ViewAllTools. If the formview 1 item updated event fires, and remember we're selecting those up here, then I'll just redirect you back to the ViewAllTools. So let's see how this is working. Make sure we have everything saved up. Alright, so if I choose Power Washer, it brings me into here. I'm using the item template, so these are all labels. I can't edit anything. If I click Edit, I can update, and it is. I can choose to edit it, or I can choose to cancel, and it'll cancel it. Okay, this is working. My drop-down box is working under Edit. It's now showing up as an electric tool. I may want to choose a drop-down box for the available as well. So it's probably going to, most items are going to be yes or no, they're available or not, they're rented or they're not rented. But we also may have some special characteristics like damaged or stolen or things like that that we want to keep track of, and we wouldn't want the users just typing random stuff in this available. We'd want to control pretty tightly how that appeared. So we could consider using a drop-down box for that as well. And then finally, when I select one, I can delete it. I get a prompt, which I expected. It writes back to that label. and finally it redirects me back here. So edit and delete appear to be working great. So now we just need to worry about inserts. So we'll tackle that next. So I've gone back and turned my availability into a drop-down box. So let's look at that. View all tools. I'm going to log in as the admin here because that's where I'm working next. Okay, so now when I go in here to edit one of these, this availability, I can have different options in here. And this is another drop-down box. It's done exactly the same way I did the type. And as I update, then the changes will stick. But again, this is just to keep the users from typing anything weird here in the update, just to force them to only have certain options. All right, so what I wanted to show you now was the insert. So the AddNewTool is going to be an admin function, so I've created it up here. First thing I need to do is go in and add some SQL data sources. So data source 1 here will be for actually adding in the tool. Okay, I'll need to add a second SQL data source. And for this one, it's going to be for that tool type. And then I'll need to add a third SQL data source. And this one will be for the availability. Okay, I've got those things added. I'll add a form view. And the data source for the form view is going to basically be SQL data source 1. Okay, edit templates. I want to get into the insert template. Okay, now there's just some information in there that I can work with in template editing. So I'm going to switch over to source view now. Now this is going to be just an insert. There's not going to be any editing going on here, so I can take all of that out. I don't like this insert. I'm going to put my own in there, so I'm going to take it out. And then the viewing, there will be no viewing, so I can take all of it out. So I've got a pretty stripped down page here when I look at it. So I've got the SQL data source. Alright, I've got the delete command, the insert, select, update. There's the delete parameters. There's the insert parameters, update parameters. And really I probably wouldn't need several of those because I'm just inserting at this point, but I'll leave them in there. So I'll have the select where I'm getting the tool type. And I'll also have the select where I'm getting the availability. Okay, so I've got my data sources cleaned up. I can see those pretty easily now. My form view. So the edit item template, we're not doing anything with that. The insert item template we will use, but the item template we will not. So I can get rid of that. All right. For insert item template, I'm going to do some cutting and pasting here. Again, it's just a table, the different table rows. So on the left is the name, on the right is a text box that will accept the value that I want to type in there. Notice I'm not doing a tool ID. I don't want to type a tool ID in. That's set to auto increment. All the way down here, the type is coming from a drop-down list tool type, which is being served by SQL Data Source 2. And available is coming from a drop-down list that's being served by SQL Data Source 3. So once I have all of those things, I can save this. And now when I view it, looks like I've got an error here. I have a space issue. This is what I would expect to happen because that form view tries to come up in the item template by default. So we need to go in and force that to come up in the insert. So we'll get into form view. We'll come here to the end of the tag. And we'll do a default mode equals insert. And now let's refresh. There we go. Now I can start typing things in. The last thing I want to do is under Add New Tools under the VB. I want to go when Form View 1 has the item inserted event fire. I want to response.redirect to ~/sales ViewAllTools.aspx. Okay, let me save that. Go back here, let me refresh the page to pick up the new code behind, and we can do test 4. Now I can set this to electric, and I can set the availability to yes, and add new item. And we can see test 4 is now in there. If I go into test 4, I can edit it. And I can delete it. So you may want to think through if you're going to allow the sales staff to delete items. You may want to work with some of those things, but this is a good idea on how you can use the form view to add new tools and do those kinds of things. Now with this form view you can also do some other things. If you wanted to upload a photo of that tool at the same time, you could put it in the form view down here. You could select it and put it in there maybe, so that you could type in all your information and pick your photo, and then on one insert it would update the database and it would upload that photo. So that's something that you may want to consider as well. But this should help you get everything you need to handle your material side of things. So all of your books, your games, those kinds of things, you should be able to add, update, delete, and with those materials.